So recently, the actor formerly known as Elliot Page, did an interview with Channel 4 in the UK to talk about trans joy and transitioning, being misgendered, and a new film called Close to You, in which Elliot Page plays a trans character named Sam who goes to a dreaded family reunion and has to deal with transphobic relatives at home. So they asked Elliot Page about the culture war, which is victimizing the trans community. And in response, Elliot Page said, "Uncomfortable is an understatement." Well, this video made me uncomfortable and a lot of people uncomfortable because, you know, Elliot Page doesn't look too good right now. I can see that at the very least, this person is extremely unhappy, is unable to make eye contact for even a split second, and just looks extremely frail and malnourished, honestly. So let's take a look at that clip.
Here we go.
There's a sort of culture war playing out in which trans people have been kind of put in the middle of, and I just wondered how you feel about that.
And when it comes to the devastating impact of what politicians and governments are doing and saying, it's uncomfortable is an understatement. It's actually horrific and has like extremely devastating consequences for a community that already really struggles to just exist.
You could see that, right? She can't make eye contact.
Yeah.
She's incapable of making eye contact with the interviewer for even a second. This is just somebody who's very obviously deeply insecure and not at peace with themselves.
She literally went from like a reasonably attractive young lady to the lowest member of society. Like, it's rough to be a manlet that's like a trans manlet. Like, you really want, men get ignored and men get like, you know, disregarded. I can't imagine why every trans man isn't making that same bawling their eyes out. Yeah. I can't believe how lonely it is, and I can't believe, you know, how much I get ignored and da 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 da.
I was explaining to Mary beforehand, it's like, I'm already short for a guy at like 5'5",
yeah.
and Elliot Page is 5'1".
5'1".
Well,
like
this is obviously a special case because, you know, if you transition in the Hollywood space, you're going to get endlessly affirmed and praised for that,
and
that's going to be the only thing you get attention for from then on.
Yeah, so the number one thing that I always think about is like when you do this, when you start banking on your identity, and this happens to actors in LGBTQ roles as well, then the only movies they hire you for are for ones pertaining to that topic.
But I think that that's what Elliot Page wants. Probably. Because you can see that with her character in the Umbrella Academy, this was originally based on a story where she played a female character. They had her character transition in the show so that she could play a trans character, and then played this trans character in another movie. So I think this just shows how all-consuming that identity crisis can be. We got a $20 from Steven Van Dalen Wetters. Said a coalition of communities of color agreed that the Slavic community experiences similar barriers as people of color. That's why Luke is a POC.
Well, that means me as a Polish Croatian have just gone through unspeakable things. And to get where I am today as the host of a podcast really is a testament to my strength.
You're breaking glass ceilings.
I am,
as we
speak. Every single day. Now, they're very low ceilings because I'm short. But in general, yes, I am breaking glass ceilings, being the culture warrior that I am.
There's another clip from this interview where they had Elliot Page address being misgendered, especially by friends and family members.
Absolutely.
Is that the Ollie London one? This one?
No.
Can you resend it?
Okay.
I thought I had it.
Here you go.
Let's go here. Thought I had that one. Maybe I did have it. I just thought it was the same as the last one.
LGBTQ plus people will be familiar with that sort of sense of dread or unease about being around certain family members.
It is a lot of people's experience, unfortunately, those feelings of dread. I wish it was not. And I think we wanted to get across maybe it's things that people don't understand happen frequently and consistently to queer and trans people all the time, including within their families. I think we were trying to capture all the sort of nuanced ways of what it can feel like.
And is it something you can relate to in your own life, kind of that slight unease in certain family situations or with certain groups of friends? Or
Yes, absolutely. And I think, you know, still being early on in my transition, of course, but like more used to it now. I think at first, when you first come out as trans, you're like, oh my God, you know, all these situations you find yourself in, and maybe you just, I guess, progressively kind of get used to it.
There's a very powerful scene in the film where Sam's mum misgenders him. And actually, interestingly, he is kind of trying to make her feel more comfortable in that situation. I just wondered whether you think that's quite common for LGBTQ plus people.
Very common, yeah. Like if someone's, you know, misgenders me and out of just, like, you can tell when something's like intentional and awful. There's another thing, like it's not a big deal, you know? It's, oh, sorry, fix it, you move.
It's absolutely a big deal to them. That's not true. And most don't make the distinction between accidental and on purpose. This was the whole point of the discussion with J.K. Rowling the other day, with the person that was like getting sued by J.K. Rowling, saying that she does it on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, if it's totally at the mercy of the person being misgendered, whether it was on purpose, you're not safe.
It's really not. If someone keeps doing it consistently over and over again, you know, that's a different conversation.
In society, we have quite a straitjacket of what we're supposed to be. I know you've spoken about this in Hollywood as well, you know.
Yes, and for cishet people, of course, as well. And that's why I'm like, oh my God, why can't we all just connect on this, right? We're all just inundated from the moment we're born. Some people even have parties before that about
the gender reveals.
Exactly, like how you should be, how you should look, what success means, like
yes,
all of those things. We're all facing those pressures, and I think you see that in the film.
Okay, so
it's just so ridiculous. It's just so ridiculous.
I think that she obviously lacks perspective because most people do not feel inundated by pressure to behave as a man or a woman. You just fall into that role naturally because it's biologically and spiritually ingrained in you. And I think if you start to feel some, you know, dis-ease with your maleness or femaleness, it's a reaction to some kind of trauma. And Ollie London pointed out, this actress who transitioned in 2020 had her breasts cut off after just one consultation with a doctor, has previously claimed she experiences trans joy every day, despite appearing in multiple interviews, appearing downcast and fragile.
She looks like the Wojak, that exhausted, tired, broken, with a scrubbly hair Wojak.
It's difficult to even listen to her voice. It's jarring to that change in her voice is taking place. And then in her memoir, Page Boy, she spoke of having a psychotic breakdown and voices in her head telling her to transition shortly before she underwent medical changes. So that sounds like demonic possession to me. And let's not forget Harley Pasternak's influence here. Mm-hmm. Elliot Page was one of Harley Pasternak's clients.
As on the set of a movie.
Okay,
it was hired by the studio.
So Kanye was one of Harley Pasternak's clients for a music video. That doesn't mean anything about whether that fitness training was strictly fitness training. It seems like this person is trained in conducting psyops.
I think the majority of this is just the overt focus on it's a narcissistic focus on your own identity that I guess maybe I just don't understand. Because I just don't worry about those types of labels in words as to what it means for me or like what my actions say about me or my gender.
I don't think that anybody that doesn't have gender dysphoria does.
Yeah.
Well, there's this telling description for that memoir from last year. where it says, as Elliot Page navigated criticism and abuse from some of the most powerful people in Hollywood and a society dead set on forcing him into a binary, Elliot often stayed silent, unsure of what to do, until enough was enough. So basically, you're coming out and saying that you were abused by powerful people in Hollywood. And that leads me to the conclusion that your transition is actually a reaction to that. Thank you.
I've put our video on Harley Pasternak in the chat if anybody wants to look at it. We did a video on Harley Pasternak and his role with Kanye and other things. It's in the chat there if people want to look at it later.
Yeah. I wouldn't be the first person to say it, but I think that it's quite obvious. Elliot Page's transition was a reaction to abuse. And I think that's observable in a lot of different instances. And Lauren Chen happened to post about this when the interview came out. She said, I don't care how politically incorrect this is. It's so obvious, I'm just going to say it. Ellen Page was sexually abused by perverts in Hollywood. I guess this caused her to hate her own body and any aspects of her own femininity that might have made her attractive to her abusers. This is likely why she began self-harming, which she admits to. Enter the trans narrative. By becoming a trans man, she not only gets to mutilate her own body and remove its femininity, hello, top surgery, with the full support of the medical community, but on top of that, she also gets praised and labeled brave and inspiring for coming out. She's not a man. She's a traumatized, mentally unwell woman who needs to unpack what happened to her and find healthy coping mechanisms, not to be told her body is wrong and given hormones and surgery. And, you know, medical transition aside, defeminization is a noted coping mechanism that abuse victims turn to, that female abuse victims do after they've been abused, because they blame themselves for the abuse in some sense or another when they haven't properly resolved it in their minds, and they blame their own femininity for what they suffered. So naturally, then you have the experts telling you, oh, that's actually a good thing. You should actually lean into that, and before you know it, you're actually at a point of no return.
Yeah. I see stories like this, and for also to stay in the industry is a big thing, to not remove yourself from the industry entirely, because at one point, like you said, there's this dark side that theoretically, of course we can't confirm that's if she was abused behind the scenes, but then that's how she makes a living. That's where her talents lie, right? She can't leave and go do something else. Most likely in her mind, she doesn't see herself capable of leaving it and go finding another line of work. So she stays in the industry and is going to now be praised by the same companies that harbored the abusers, theoretically, that harmed her.
And the industry's probably not all that, like, the movie industry's not that big where she can avoid the people that have been, significantly abusive or whatever. Or it's unlikely that she could be able to.
Yeah, it seems like the transition that Elliot Page underwent was actually a survival mechanism to not only just cope with what happened, whatever that was, but also to stay in the industry. And then also other people pointed out the same thing happened to Amanda Bynes. Amanda Bynes altering her appearance so she can appear as unattractive as possible to men after being traumatized and sexualized as a child star is my Roman Empire. Like, it's clearly a pattern that we see in a lot of different people.
Yeah.
The desire to make yourself unattractive.
Yeah.
Does that go hand in hand with Hollywood's seeming desire to remove traditional beauty from what they use to advertise movies and television? Going towards less attractive characters, going towards less attractive body types?
That seems like more of an ideologically driven trend. But if you also have vulnerable people who are in the public spotlight that want that outcome anyway, seems like the perfect, match made in hell.
Professionally, from people in these situations, somebody mentions, allegedly Ruckus mentions Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato is kind of back to, she's taking care of herself.
Yeah, she kind of went off the rails for a long time there, but she seems to be snapping back to looking and acting somewhat normal again.
But
Who's to say if that's just a front too?
professionally, I feel bad for the actors that pigeonhole themselves into these roles, because then it's kind of like when I tell the story about comic book writer Christopher Priest, who used to be able to write whatever characters he wanted, but then as Marvel got more ideologically inclined, they started only offering the black comic book writer roles, the job to write for black characters, when his job as a writer is not to just write characters that look like him, because he's not the king of a foreign country either. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's the most surface level argument you can make. So when all you are becomes just your identity, and when your identity is so in vogue, you're not going to get roles doing interesting things that break you away from what you are. And I imagine that a lot of the joy that an actor feels is in portraying something that's very much not them. So why would you only want to portray characters that are like you? Well, that's because the message that you're portraying becomes more important than the actual joy you had at one point for the profession of acting.
We got a $20 from Pat the Plumber. I want to quit my job and move to your neck of the woods and be the man that serves Brett his Sheets tacos. Also, the headline is mean, so I'm pretty sure Mary wrote it.
What headline is mean?
The headline of the live stream?
How much did you write it?
We both write it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. You mean like the Elliot Page looks unwell?
I don't know if it's mean or if it's just
It's just an observation.
the objective truth.
Yep.
I don't know if Elliot Page would even disagree.
I don't have any, I'm not wealthy enough to hire a Sheets taco
He can serve it to you like
server. but I
on a
would love
silver
that.
platter.
That would be great.
Yeah?
Yep.
I think that would be a vibe. But yeah, you can't cast Elliot Page in a movie to play a man, can you? Without addressing, obviously, that this person isn't a man.
Beyond that, the logistics of casting a 5 foot tall person that is going to be a foot shorter than most of the other people hiring, they have a hard enough time doing that with Tom Cruise, and he's 5'6" and has producer privileges.
Yeah.
Okay, they got to work around Tom Cruise doing that. So if you're going to hire Elliot Page as a traditionally male character and you're not going to address it, which I would applaud if you could actually find a way to do it. No, I'm saying like
That's a horrible
What
idea.
I'm saying is hire the people and don't make it about the identity. I would rather see them do that than make a bunch of movies about.
I don't want to
about
see
their
this
identity.
on
But
screen.
the problem
No.
is when they do that, they're going to have to address the fact that the person is slight and frail and not at all what you normally hire from actors.
No. How long do you figure, especially for leading roles, like Elliot Page is never going to get leading roles as like a manly guy or like even a borderline manly guy. How long do you think until kind of society or maybe Hollywood realizes that society's over that kind of stuff, where it's like, okay, look, we can't make another movie about your mutilated vagina, like nobody wants to see that.
Well, that's it. There's always going to be a market for woke indie films, right?
There will be. I understand what you're saying as like for indie films and stuff, but that doesn't like I imagine it's got to end with the big.
This is why people were joking about Elliot Page is the next Superman. Like, okay, that's obviously never going to happen because this isn't a man.
But like, exactly. But people are when does the audience become vocally tired of the narcissism? I guess it might be the core of my question. Because like seriously, it's so specific of an audience who likes this. Like, there are so few trans people. The only people that go to see this are trans people in the LGBT group, and people that are like, yo, I'm an ally. Everyone else avoids this kind of stuff like the plague because they can't relate to it.
Well, it's also like, this is your mascot for...
That mascot is a gross gross way to think of it, and I don't mind.
This is your mascot for a movement about us, we're being our true selves and we're happier than we've ever been. And we're so healthy.
RuPaul was a way better spokesperson.
But RuPaul knows he's a man. RuPaul is a drag queen who knows that he is a man and doesn't deny that he is a man.
This is true.
There's a big difference there.
They will not acknowledge the fact that people just don't want to see movies about this stuff. We just had to go watch a movie last weekend that made identity politics the theme of its entire film, and there was 6 people in the theater. Sorry,
Right.
8 people in the theater.
It's not tenable.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.